I don't know if I'll make it. I've got another load of ice cubes going to
If I put them in the dunk tank, would you pencil it?
Make her.
I probably would be against the be kind thing. To dump them.
Yeah,
Don't
yeah.
be kindly, please. Unless it was something a day like today that I'd be begging for it. Please.
Yeah.
What had to cool me off. Yeah, these little pesky flies.
I heard my first sizzle.
Yeah, I did this week too. Yep. I did, it was like a couple days ago, I was sitting out on the porch having a coffee this morning and I heard it going out of the tree.
People stay there, and then people just go in, they get rehabilitated, and then they go back out.
That's what, 3 weeks ago, I've been hearing that these little commercials.
Oh, yeah.
Brian's like, so I'm slipping away, we need to go camping, so I think we're doing that this weekend. Yep. Oh, baby, it's yummy. I always love Christmas.
Do you think you'll go up to the Adirondacks?
This weekend, probably not, just because we're pressed for time. But they do want to go back. We went up once, but Brian would like to go back 2 more times. But he is, what, 36 mountains?
Yeah. How long ago was it?
And Daniel said, I'm holding my fingers backwards. Because I asked him on the 16, yeah. I asked him what the fingers were for, because I'm trying to count 10. Well, then I noticed Teddy had 3, that was supposed to be 30, and then 6. Daniel did his backwards. So I put my fingers up. He goes, oh, I held up the wrong hand.
Not enough of a breeze that.
Yep, let's see what we can do here. I forget who I am, I can spin it around and check.
You know, before they put the new ones in. Yeah, when you read about it,
Did he hear the little chicken that he flushed when we went down there?
Oh, the what?
Yeah. They were cutting that off.
I don't know, this year, a long time ago.
She tried laying down the middle of the road and still kept it.
Who did? Oh, have they should. I don't know. I don't trust people.
Maybe in New York.
They would be forced to turn into the museum.
I think you might get in trouble with that.
No, he's too cute to get in trouble.
You can always get an 8, put an arrow and roll over his finger.
Next time borrow one of these strands of lights. Hold it across the road. No.
Well, good evening, everybody. Thank you for coming. Tonight is the first of a couple of programs where we'll be marking the bicentennial of the Erie Canal's opening. So tonight we'll do it with music, and in 2 weeks we've got a historian from the Erie Canal Museum in Syracuse. Our musician tonight, you've been coming here what? 10 years at
10,
least.
11 years, something like that.
Yeah, he's been here almost since the beginning of our Summer at the Stonehouse programs, and he's covered all kinds of topics over the years. Everything from Civil War, I think that's probably where you started when we were doing the sesquicentennial stuff, and on up to cowboy music. music. I think we've done
Cowboy music, railroad music,
So we've
music
covered,
of rebels and outlaws,
that's right. That was
stuff
good.
like that.
So we've had all kinds of topics, but again, being we're in the bicentennial year for the Erie Canal, we wanted to make note of that. So Alan suggested last year when he was here that we could do a program on that particular subject. So Alan, if you've been here before, you've probably heard some of his programs in the past. But either way, welcome our musician for the night, Allen Hopkins.
Haul in your tow line and take in your slack. Take a reef in your britches and straighten your back. Mind what I tell you and don't you forget to tap the mules gently when the cook's on the deck. You can talk of your picnics, your trips on the lake, but a trip on the Erie, you bet, takes the cake, where the steak is as tough as a fighting dog's neck, and the flies playing tag with the cook on the deck. So haul in your tow line and take in your slack. Take a reef in your britches and straighten your back. Mind what I tell you and don't you forget to tap the mules gently when the cook's on the deck. Oh, the cook on our boat, she's dead gone on me. She's got fiery red hair and she's twice 33. She's knock-kneed and freckled, a dumpling and a pet, and we use her for a headlight at night on the deck. So haul in your tow lines and take in your slack. Take a reef in your britches and straighten your back. Mind what I tell you and don't you forget to tap the mules gently when the cook's on the deck. I do canal song programs, and everybody says, do the Erie Canal song, and I reply, which one? I will get around before the end of the evening to do the one about Sal and the 15 miles on the Erie Canal that everybody says is the Erie Canal song, and I'll tell you a little bit about it that will make you change your mind about it. But let me just say that there's a lot of wonderful music associated with the Erie Canal, songs that the canalers sang, songs that people wrote during that period that mentioned the canal. And by the way, let me just say one thing before I get started, because I may confuse you, because it's the canal, but it's also the canal. And which pronunciation I use somewhat depends on the song, what they rhyme it with. If it's fall and all, then it's the canal. If it's pal and gal, then it's the canal. You know, that's the difference. But obviously, the two pronunciations were used somewhat interchangeably. They started, the Erie Canal is the biggest thing in our, oh, by the way, there's going to be a real historian here for the next program, so don't tell him all the lies I told, okay? I'm not a historian, I'm just a humble musician. But after the Revolutionary War and the War of 1812, the country expanded quite a bit as it went into what was then called the West. It was actually Ohio and Illinois and Indiana and Iowa and Michigan and those states out there, and people were wondering how to connect those states with the original colonies and states along the seaboard. George Washington had an idea. He was from Virginia, and he thought maybe if they built a big road from Virginia out to the west, that would be a good idea, and they could bring the goods and have commerce come from what we call now the Midwest to the Atlantic coast. DeWitt Clinton was the governor of New York, and he had a different idea. His idea was, this was the era in England when they were building many, many canals to get people around. He said, we could have a grand canal, a great canal, all the way from the Great Lakes to the Atlantic, well, to the Hudson River, and then down the Hudson River out to the Atlantic Ocean. And all the people who are raising crops and doing manufacturing and things in that new opening Midwest would have an outlet for their commerce and would tie the country together. He was a very smart politician. One of the things he did that we don't see too much of today was he was a bipartisan. He put a very well-known Federalist judge in charge of his canal commission, so they couldn't say it was just a Democratic project. It was people on both sides. They raised the hitherto unheard of sum of $7 billion to build the Erie Canal, and they started in the mid part of the second decade of the 1815, 1816, around then, started to dig the canal. They started with the easy part. They started with the Mohawk River, which already was going to be part of the canal. It was the big east-west river. All they had to do was work on the channel, deepen it in some places, build locks around the falls, and then they went west. And the way they dug the canal was kind of interesting. They contracted out each individual section to a local contractor. They gave him the specifications, and they said, you're responsible for digging the canal from here to there. And so the local contractors got busy. And they soon found that in certain parts of the canal, that worked very well. In other parts of the canal, it did not work at all well, because there were places, the classic example is the Great Montezuma Swamp, where it was unhealthy, the digging was terrible, there weren't a lot of people living there to draw laborers from, and they needed to increase their workforce. So they did what we've been doing ever since. They went for immigrants. They sent contractors down to the seaports like Philadelphia and Boston and New York to meet those ships with Irish people coming over, fleeing from the terrible conditions in Ireland. During this period, by the way, Ireland lost a third of its population to either death or emigration. And they signed them up right off the boat to go up and work on the canal. And here's the story of one of them. The song is called Paddy on the Canal because all Irishmen were named Paddy. I bet you didn't know that. Now, he's obviously gets into Philadelphia. A contractor meets him right at the boat and says, come on and work on the canal. He signs up and he loves it. And I don't know if that was a typical experience, but you'll hear what he says. If paradise be in this wide world, I'm sure it's out on the canal. When I landed in old Philadelphia, the weather it was sweet and clear, but I did not stay long in that city, as you will quickly hear. I didn't stay long in that city, though it happened to be in the fall. I never reefed a sail in my rigging till I landed out on the canal. Farewell, father and mother, likewise old Ireland too. Fare you well, sister and brother, so fondly I'll bid you adieu. When I came to this wonderful empire, it filled me with greatest surprise to see such a grand undertaking, on the like I'd never opened me eyes. To see a full 1,000 brave fellows at work in the mountains so tall, and dig in the valleys so level through the gravel to cut the canal. So farewell, father and mother, likewise old Ireland too. Fare you well, sister and brother, so fondly I'll bid you adieu. I entered with them for a season, my monthly pay for to draw, and being in such a good humor, I'd often sing Aaron Dobra. Provisions were given in plenty, we'd no reasons to complain at all. I'd money in every pocket while working out on the canal. So farewell, father and mother, likewise old Ireland too. Farewell, sister and brother, so fondly I'll bid you adieu. And at night when we rest from our labors, be sure that our rent it is paid. We lay down all joking together, with nothing our minds to enthrall. If paradise be in this wide world, I'm sure it's out on the canal. Farewell, father and mother, likewise old Ireland too. Fare you well, sister and brother, so fondly I'll bid you adieu. Heading down the canal, around the canal. And I'm not saying that the experience he talks of being almost entirely positive and pleasurable was the average experience of the immigrants working on the canal. It was very hard work. Realize this was a 300-mile-long canal dug entirely by hand shoveling. There were no powered equipment at all. It was all done by hand with horse-drawn carts to carry away the dirt when they dug it up. They had a specification. It was to be 4 feet deep and 40 feet wide. And there was a very important person who I'm sure the historian next week or whenever he's here will mention, a man with the odd name of Canvas White. Canvas White was the chief engineer on the construction of the canal, and he also was an exponent of what we would now call industrial espionage. He went over to England and got the secret formula for the waterproof mortar that they used to put their locks together, that didn't dissolve when it was kept underwater all the time, but it stayed strong. He brought that formula back to America, and without it we would not have been able to build a canal. So he had an important role in more than one way. Now, a lot of the songs about the canal are songs that are, at least, try to be humorous, because the canal people were kind of a rowdy people, were jaunty people. They enjoyed talking about how hard the work was on the canal, how bad the food was, and how ugly the cook was. I've learned this song because I couldn't get over the first line. I've traveled all around this world in Tonawanda too. Been cast on desert islands, I've been beaten black and blue. I fought and bled at Bully Run and wandered since a boy, but I can't forget the trip I took from Buffalo to Troy. And it's tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. I'm going to ask a favor of you. We need some tramping on this. So when I get to the chorus where it says tramp, 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 if you would tramp for me. Oh, it's tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. Watch the playful horse flies as on the mules they climb. Whoa, back, duck your nut, forget it, I never shall. Oh, I'm every inch a sailor on the Erie Canal. I shipped on board of a lumber boat and her name was the Charles O'Rourke. The very first thing they rolled on board was a barrel of Black Rock pork. From Buffalo to Albany, they fed it to poor me. Then they boiled up the barrel itself and we drank it up for tea. And tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. Watch the playful horse flies as on the mules they climb. Whoa, back, duck your nut, forget it, I never shall, 'cause I'm every inch a sailor on the Erie Canal. What do you thought of the cook? Oh, the cook on board our packet boat stood 6 feet in her socks, with a bosom like a boxcar, and her breath would open the locks. A maid of 60 summers is she sleeps upon the floor, and when at night she goes to bed, oh, suffering how she'll snore. And it's tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. Watch the playful horse flies as on the mules they climb. Whoa, back, duck your nut, forget it, I never shall. I'm every inch a sailor on the Erie Canal. Well, one night upon the Erie, I couldn't sleep awake. The crew, they all bore down on me, for I refused to drink. With fierce storms and heavy fogs, forget it, I never shall. When I drove a team of spavin mules on the Erie Canal. And it's tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. Watch the playful horse flies as on the mules they climb. Whoa, back, duck your nut, forget it, I never shall. I'm every inch a sailor on the Erie Canal. So when we got to Buffalo with Sally, Jack, and Hank, we greased ourselves with tallow fat and slid out on a plank. The girls are in the police gazette, the crew is all in jail, and I'm the only son of a gun that's left to tell the tale. And it's tramp, 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 tighten up your lines. Watch the playful horseflies as on the mules they climb. Whoa back, duck, you're not forget it, I never shall. I'm every inch a sailor on the Erie Canal. The duck your nut revolves, put your head down, low bridge coming. Well, I'm gonna see, what have I got? Check my set list here. Yes. This is a song that was actually sung at least one of the ceremonies opening the Erie Canal. Now, how did they celebrate the opening of the Erie Canal? In October 1825. They got a canal boat. One of the boats was called the Young Lion of the West. I don't know what the other ones were called. And they went out into the Lake Erie, Buffalo Harbor, and they pulled up a barrel of Lake Erie water and put it on the boat. And then they started east. Every little town they went through had a bonfire or a militia muster or a volley of cannons or whatever to celebrate it. Speeches galore all the way from Buffalo all the way to Albany, where they took that barrel of Lake Erie water and put it on a Hudson River sloop, sailed it down the Hudson River out into New York Harbor, and ceremoniously dumped it into the Atlantic Ocean, thus celebrating, symbolizing the uniting of the waters of the Great Lakes and the Atlantic Ocean, which, as I might point out, was something that the St. Lawrence River had been doing for millennia, but this was special. So they did this song. Based on an Irish air called The Meaning of the Waters, or the Vale of Avoca. And since they were singing about the meaning of the waters of Hudson and Erie, that's what they called it. And here it is, a song that was sung in one of the ceremonies anyway, The Meaning of the Waters of Hudson and Erie. Let the day be forever remembered with pride, that beheld the proud Hudson with Erie alight. The last sands of time from its glass shall descend, ere a union so fruitful of glory shall end. A union so fruitful of glory shall end. But it is not that wealth now enriches the scene, where treasures of art and of nature convene. 'Tis not that this union our coffers may fill. Oh no, 'tis something more exquisite still. Oh no, it's something more exquisite still. 'Tis that genius has triumphed and science prevailed, where prejudice flouted and envy assailed. It is that the vassals of Europe may see the progress of mind in the land that is free. The progress of mind in a land that is free. So all hail to this project, so grand and sublime, a bond that can never be severed by time, unites us still closer and all jealousy cease, and our hearts like our waters are mingled in peace. Our hearts like our waters are mingled in peace. buckled for that one. That was the Erie Canal March. Played the best I could. It's also the Meeting of the Waters of Hudson and Erie. Some songs that were done and tunes that were done to commemorate the opening of the Erie Canal in 1825. And of course, the canalers, as they like to say, every inch a sailor, they like to think that, that they were sailors just like the sailors on the Great Lakes. And when they say about things, one of the hazards they say about the most was, of course, the famous Low Bridge. And that's not a joke either, folks. If you take the Colonial Bell out of Fairport even now, you come to that railroad bridge, they'll tell you everybody on the top deck, you gotta sit down because the bridge is just only 5.5 feet above the deck of the ship. So this is a song that came out in the 1870s in a musical comedy called The Grip. And it's called Oh, That Low Bridge. Now I gotta tell you, this was a song that was originally written in minstrel dialect as Oh, That Low Bridge, but I think I've cleaned it up a little bit. You have a part in this song. When we get to the chorus, I'll sing, look out that low bridge, and you sing, look out that low bridge, and then I'll sing, look out that low bridge, and you sing, look out that low bridge. That's all you have to do, look out that low bridge. Just repeat what I say. It's many miles to Buffalo, oh, that low bridge, walking you to travel slow, oh, that low bridge. There's gravel on the towpath, hornets in the sand, pity poor canalers so far away from land. Are you ready? So look out that low bridge. 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 Oh, Captain Cook and all the crew, now duck your heads way down. Fastest boat in all the fleet, two sisters come to town. There's many locks that shut you in, oh, that low bridge. Everyone must learn to swim, oh, that low bridge. We're loaded down with barley, lumber from the west. Oh, every poor canaler, now do your level best. And look out that low bridge. 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 Oh, you Captain Cook and all the crew, now duck your head way down, 'cause the fastest boat in all the fleet, two sisters come to town. We're froze up in the winter time, oh, that low bridge. Summer, how the sun is shine, oh, that low bridge. In rain and stormy weather, the captain's on the poop, and we're huddled all together like chickens in a coop. And look out that low bridge. 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 Oh, you Captain Cook and all the crew, now duck your head way down, 'cause the fastest boat in all the fleet, two sisters come to town. There's groceries in the cabin there, oh, that low bridge. She never leaks, she's full of tar, oh, that low bridge. There's freckles on the children, glanders on the mule, mosquitoes by the millions who keep the golden rule. Yes, Chance. Look out that low bridge. 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 Oh, you Captain Cook and all the crew, now duck your heads way down. Fastest boat in all the fleet, two sisters come to town. Oh, that low bridge. Listen to me. Well, it stands to reason. The canal was dug through people's fields. It was dug all over people's backyards. They'd get an easement from the property owner and get the canal to go through, but the property owner says, yeah, that's fine. I'm glad to get paid for right away for the canal, but how do I get from my south pasture to my north pasture now? And they got this big ditch dug through it. They said, well, you can put up a bridge. So some of those bridges were not exactly works of engineering expertise, and some of them were pretty low. And if you were, especially if you were the kind of driver who liked to ride on one of the mules or the horses, you really had to scrunch yourself down to get under them, that's for sure. Well, I'm going to depart a little bit from the canal format to do a song that is about the most biggest event that happened in Rochester in probably its first 30 years, and that was the death of Sam Patch. Are you all familiar with Sam Patch?
No.
Never heard of him. Well, he was a big deal in 1820s America. He came from Rhode Island and lived in New Jersey, and from New Jersey he went all around the country being a daredevil. He would jump from a high point into a body of water, and he would charge people to see him do it. So he jumped into the gorge of the Niagara River, for example. He jumped from the steeple of a church. He jumped from a bridge. He jumped from the mast of a ship. Whatever they did, people would pay to see him do it. And so he came to Rochester in 1829, determined to jump into the Genesee River from a hastily erected platform down near the Driving Park Bridge, which is the old village of Carthage. And he did it, and he drew a crowd, and it was okay, but he didn't draw enough of a crowd. He thought he could do it again. And he billed it as Sam Patch's last jump. Well, you know, that was what he always said, because he was going to go to another city, and it was his last jump in Rochester. In this case, however, he was quite prophetic. Now, I'm not a daredevil. Never aspired to be one. Were I a daredevil, I wouldn't do my daredevil stuff on Friday the 13th. But nonetheless, that was Sam's plan. And on Friday, November 13th, 1829, he walked out on that platform out by the lower falls of the Genesee, supposedly accompanied with a bear and a fox. And they were all going to jump into the Genesee River together. And there was a stockade fence erected, and the people had sold tickets to come and stand and watch. And they walked out on that platform, and they all jumped into the river. And the bear came up, and the fox came up, and Sam did not. There were those who said he had been enjoying a little bit of liquid refreshment to build up his courage for jumping in the frigid November water, and didn't go down straight as he usually did, feet first, but leaning a little forward. So probably he had the wind knocked out of him and swallowed a little too much of that good old Genesee River water, and was never seen again until the next St. Patrick's Day, when he washed up on the beach at Shalott. Sam is buried in the Shalott Cemetery with a marker with his favorite motto on it, which is, "Some things can be done as well as others." We have no idea what that meant, but that was his motto. And now, I know you're asking me, what about the bear and the fox? We don't know what happened to the fox, but we know that the bear was fished out of the river and kept on display in Rochester until it died. And then they stuffed him and exhibited his stuffed body in the Reynolds Arcade until late into the 19th century, when he got moth-eaten or raggedy and they threw him out. So he stayed in Rochester a lot longer than Sam did. In 1914, a professor at the University of Rochester by the name of Kendrick Shedd put together what he called the Rochester Songbook. And in that, he wrote a song about Sam Patch using an old German melody. It's got a chorus that you got to sing. Oh, Sammy, Sammy, Sammy. Oh, what a fate for Sammy. Was 1826 and 3, as we should all remember, that Patchy jumped the Genesee the 13th of November. The crowd stood by and held its breath as Sam plunged downward to his death. Here's the chorus. Oh, Sammy, 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 oh, what a fate for Sammy. Let's try it. Oh, Sammy, 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 oh, what a fate for Sammy. Though Sam came from the Jersey state, he jumped throughout the nation. His springing appetite to sate, he jumped with jubilation. From mast and bridge he bravely sprang, while countless lips his praises sang. Oh, Sammy, 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 oh, what a fate for Sammy. Now Sam, he braved Niagara's power, but that was not satisfying. The Genesee I'll next devour, said he, or die a-trying. He jumped 100 and a score, it was his last, he jumped no more. Oh, Sammy, 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 oh, what a fate for Sammy. Poor Sam, he ne'er more saw the light, he left the earth behind him. Beneath the falls there lost to sight, no mortal man could find him. But at the river's mouth he lay, they found him on St. Patrick's Day. Oh, Sammy, 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 oh, what a fate for Sammy. The Ballad of Sam Hill, from the Rochester Songbook of 1914, compiled by Kendrick Shedd, well-known socialist, university professor, and public gadfly. He used to go to all the city council meetings and harass the people. That was up. But the Rochester Songbook is his lasting legacy, and if you go to an old antique bookstore around here, you can find copies of it. I have one. Well, I was telling about the canalers thinking they were really sailors. And that we're like those sailors out on the Atlantic or whatever. It's people like that. Well, of course, as I said, the Erie Canal was 4 feet deep and 40 feet wide. If your boat sank, the water came up to here, and the shore was 20 feet away. So we probably were not in a lot of danger. Of course, if you had been drinking, which is sort of the point of this song. The Erie was rising, but the gin was getting low. And I scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. We were 40 miles from Albany, forget it, I never shall. The terrible storm we had that night on the Erie Canal. Oh, the Erie was rising, gin getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. Till we get to Buffalo. Well, our boat was full of barley, but our crew was full of rye. And the captain, he looked down on me with a doggone wicked eye. Oh, the Erie was rising, gin getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. Till we get to Buffalo. We were 2 days out of Syracuse, vessel struck a show. Like to have all been foundered on a chunk of Lackawanna coal. Oh, the Erie was rising, gin getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. We'll get to Buffalo. And the captain ran out on the deck with a spyglass in his hand. Thought it got so doggone thick that he couldn't spy the land. And our cook, she was a grand old gal, but she wore a ragged dress. So we hoisted her up upon a pole for a signal of distress. Oh, the Erie was rising, gin getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. Till we get to Buffalo. So we hollered to the driver out on the towpath, treading dirt. He hopped on board and stopped that leak with a lousy flannel shirt. Oh, the Erie was rising, gin was getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. Till we get to Buffalo. Captain's in the poorhouse, crew's all locked in jail. I'm the only caller now that's left to tell the tale of how the Erie was rising, gin getting low. Scarcely think we'll get a drink till we get to Buffalo. Till we get to Buffalo. The Erie was rising, but the gin was getting low. I'm going to depart again slightly from the canal format to do a song, a canal era song from Rochester, by a composer who has a very interesting and somewhat shady history. His name was George Poulton. And George Poulton, P-O-U-L-T-O. And George Poulton taught music in different places around New York in the early part of the 1840s, 50s, around that time. And he was teaching down near Troy in one place where, although he was a married man, he, as the paper described it, eloped with one of his teenage music students. Now that didn't sit very well with the teenage music student's family, so they went after Mr. Poulton, caught him, and if you believe these newspaper accounts of the period, he became one of the very few American composers that we know was tarred and feathered. After that, he moved to Rochester, and there fell into what the newspaper was later to describe as dissolute habits. He was arrested for arson, for trying to burn down the New England Hotel in downtown Rochester, and ever since that event, he was referred to in the press as the incendiary Poulton. He passed away in his 50s, and he left behind one beautiful melody that I think you've probably heard. If you're Elvis Presley fans, some of you may be Elvis Presley fans, remember right when he was first starting out and they said he couldn't sing sweet, slow songs, he was just a rock and roller, and then he came out with a song called Love Me Tender. And the music, the melody of Love Me Tender was the same melody George Poulton wrote 110 years before. It's called Orally. When the blackbird in the spring 'neath the willow tree sat and rocked, I heard him sing, singing orally. Orally, orally, maid of golden hair, sunshine came along with thee and swallows in the air. In thy blush the rose was born, music when you spake. In thine azure eyes the dawn sparkling seemed to wake. Orally, orally, birds of crimson wing, never song have sung to me as in that sweet spring. Orally, the birds may flee and the willow's golden hair may swing through winter fitfully on the frosty air. Yet when thy blue eyes I see, gloom will soon depart. For to me, sweet Orally, the sunshine through the heart. And when the mistletoe was green 'neath the winter's snows, sunlight on thy face was seen, kissing lips lips of rose. Oh, Orly, Orly, take my golden ring, for light and life return with thee, and swallows in the spring. Orly, Orly, made of golden hair, sunshine came along with thee, and swallows in the air. Orly. A beautiful song from a very troubled person. Well, I'm going to keep my guitar on here for a while and do another song that has to do with the canal, but sort of kind of, well, let me tell you about it. Henry Russell came over to Rochester from England in the 1830s. Thank you. Just put it on top of the book there. They wanted me to pick that harmonica up, so let me put the concertina on it. Thank you. He came over. He was from a very well-known Jewish family in England. In fact, his great uncle was the chief rabbi of England at one point. He had been a boy soprano in a kids' choir, and he became a musician. He was a keyboard player. He took a job here in Rochester despite his religious preference. He took a job as a church organist and also as a music teacher. He wrote a lot of songs, and then he went back to England after probably 10 years. And while he was here, he picked up on a poem by someone who I've never heard of named Enos Sargent. The poem was called A Life on the Ocean Wave, and you may be familiar with the melody because the melody persisted, Russell's melody persisted, and it became the marching song of the Royal Marine Corps in England. There, you may have heard that tune before. Well, Life on the Ocean Wave was the song that the setting of the poem that Henry Russell did, and of course the Canalers liked the tune, so they put their own words to it. Life on the old canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall, the frogs their vigils do keep. That's the tune. But it's the same tune. It's a good tune, and silly words. But another real canal song. By the way, I should mention, and I'll show this book to you later. That I owe to the late Professor William Hullfish of SUNY Brockport, who collected, produced, compiled, and performed a lot of these canal songs for many years. Let's get this right, okay? Oh, a life on the old canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall, the frogs their vigils do keep. Like a fish on a hook, I pine on this dull, unchanging shore. Give me the packet line, and the muddy canal's dull roar. A life on the old canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall, the frogs their vigils do keep. Yes, the frogs their vigils do keep. Once more on the deck I stand of my own swift gliding craft. The horses trot on the land and the boat follows close abaft. We swing through the turbid foam like a bullfrog in a squall, and like the frogs our home is on the muddy canal. Oh, a life on the old canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, or fall, the frogs their vigils do keep. Oh, the frogs their vigils do keep. Well, the sun is no more in view, and the clouds have begun to frown. But with a glass or two, we'll sing, let the rain come down. We'll sing it one and all, though the rain around us pelts. A life on the old canal, oh, we don't want nothing else. A life on the old canal, a home on its muddy deep, where through summer, spring, and fall, the frogs their vigils do keep. Yes, the frogs, the frogs, the frogs their vigils do keep. Life on the old canal. Well, you know, the canal was kind of a rough and rowdy place. It really was, and missing a piece of equipment here. I may have to do that. Without this, let me see. It must have fallen off. Because I had a juice harp here somewhere. And I think it fell off the chair. And I don't see it on the ground. So I may just do this a cappella and hunt for the juice harp later. There was a speed limit on the canal. Speed limit was 5 miles an hour. How did they enforce the speed limit? Didn't have radar guns. Didn't have any way to measure your speed. So what they did was they looked at the gait of the animals that were pulling the boats, the barges, whatever. If they were trotting, walking, or just a very slow trot, that was no problem. If they got into a canter or, God forbid, into a gallop, they knew that that guy was breaking the speed limit. And who enforced the speed limit? The lock keepers at each lock. And if they saw a guy whipping his mules or horses to get up to that lock as fast as possible, often to try to beat another boat to the lock, because then the other boat would have to wait while the first one went through, they would take him up in the office, and they would tell him he'd broken the rules. Now, this song was not collected on the Erie Canal. It was collected on the Champlain Canal up in the North Country. And I have to apologize ahead of time to people with good manners here in the audience, because it has very much a PG song. It has rhymes in it that you can tell what the guy was really trying to say, even though he said something else. So here's the Champlain Canal song. The story of a mule driver who went a little too fast and got caught. Oh, the river being wide. Oh, it's got a chorus, by the way. Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. If you feel like singing that, you can sing that. Oh, the river being wide and the water being low, I said, "God darn, Jack and Jenny, won't you tow?" They towed that boat and they towed it very well till the trace chain broke, and they towed it straight to ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. 'Twas about 4 o'clock when I made it to the lock. First one I seen was old Prosser at the top. Says he, "Young man, what team is that?" I said, "It's Lightfoot and Jenny, and they're a-getting fat." Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. He said, "Young man, ain't you running that team?" Says I, "Mr. Prosser, ain't you blowing off steam?" He says, "Young man, give me none of your sass." Says I, "Mr. Prosser, you could kiss my foot." Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. So he took me in the office and he read to me the rules. Said, "Young man, would you break that of mules?" Well, if they were mules, I'd turn them out to grass, and if you don't like it, you could shove them in your barn. Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. So come on, you donkey drivers, and listen unto me. Don't hang your shirt in the top of any tree. The fleas, they will wither, and the knits will all decay. They'll all take legs and carry your shirt away. Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. And come on, you donkey drivers, and listen to me well. If you don't go to heaven, you'll have to go to hell. And if you go to hell, you better sharpen up your teeth, for to eat the rotten Johnny cake, it's second-handed beef. Ling dong, ding dong, diddly I do day. Well, I'm going to do a song of nostalgic reflection here that was collected, I believe, in the Parenton Historical Society back in the 70s when we were... supposedly sung by the descendants of one of Rochester's first settlers, Hamlet Scranton. Hamlet Scranton. The Scranton's department store was in Rochester when I was living there back in the 80s and 90s, so it lasted a long time. Hamlet Scranton's descendants supposedly gathered around the time of the Civil War at a sort of a reunion on the banks of the Genesee, and they sang the song about the changes that had occurred in this area between 50 years before, when the city of Rochester was founded in 1814, and the Civil War, 1860, 1864. Well, 50 years ago we sing, 50 years ago, what time has wrought where we are brought since 50 years ago. It talks about some of the changes that occurred. We talk about now how we're living in a time of rapid change, but the early 1800s was a time of rapid change in Western New York, that's for sure. So here's 50 years ago. Kind friends, we gather on this shore, and where these waters flow, where first our fathers met of yore, some 50 years ago. The ground is hallowed where we meet, and shall be evermore. Even now we hear the sounding feet of those who've gone before. Of 50 years ago we sing, of 50 years ago, what time has wrought where we are brought since 50 years ago. No stagecoach rattled o'er the hill, no coachman's horn did blow. The wilderness unbroken still lay 50 years ago. No grand canal with commerce blessed from east to west did flow, not even yet the project guessed back 50 years ago. Of 50 years ago we sing, of 50 years ago, what time has wrought, what we are brought since 50 years ago. No rushing, steaming iron horse on iron tracks did go. 'Twas not the sum of speed and force back 50 years ago. The Iroquois listened, and the deer on flying feet did go. It was their time of hope and fear back 50 years ago. Of 50 years ago we sing, of 50 years ago, what time has wrought where we are brought since 50 years ago. Years ago. Collected in Arlington Historical Society by the late Betty Major for our canal program that I helped put together back for the bicentennial around 1876. And we're still singing those songs, and people are still writing songs about the canal. Much hard as that may be to believe. The great American folk singer Gene Ritchie wrote a song in 1865 about the canal, and about the fact that canalers, whatever you want to call them, were not the most dependable people in the world. They were sort of itinerant. They had a girl in every port, as this girl finds out. Now, Gene Ritchie wrote this from the women's point of view, so I've sort of changed the lyrics a little bit to put it in the third person. It's called That Long Canal. Oh, that day, that mournful day, forget it I never shall. He's gone, her love is gone on that long canal. Come listen to my story, girls, for every word is true. And do not smile and turn your head, for it might be concerning you. She was born and raised in the state of New York, in the town they call Albany. Her heart was gay till the fateful day they opened the Erie. And oh, that day, that mournful day, forget it she never shall. He's gone, her love is gone, gone on the long canal. He said she was the prettiest girl in all of old Albany town. And if he could find honest work to do, they'd marry and settle down. But you know, he's good at most any trade, so the truth is plain to see. If it had to be her or the long canal, he's chosen the Erie. And oh, that day, that mournful day, forget it, I never shall. She's gone, he's gone, her love is gone, gone on the long canal. He said that they would marry me, and he would stay at home. But he's got another girl in Rochester town, one in Syracuse and in Rome. So girls, don't believe the canaler's lies, though for love undying he'll call. For with the dawn you'll find he's gone, gone on the long canal. And oh, that day, that mournful day, forget it, she never shall. For he's gone, her love is gone, gone on that long canal. And as they say, people are still writing songs about the canal, or at least they have the canal. And this song's written by a friend of mine, a guy named Joel LeMay, who's a songwriter and a singer, and he runs a little coffee house in the village of Macedon. If you're ever in Macedon, stop in at 77 West Main, and Joel will make you welcome, and there'll be some good music and cookies. I always go there for the cookies. He wrote this song about a party, about a series of parties that I went to back in the 1990s, early 2000. At a house in the little hamlet of Bushnell's Basin, right on the banks of the canal. The canal ran right through the backyard, and we all sat around in there in Donna and Bob Russell's backyard and sang songs till the wee hours. And Joe wrote about it, said, sun comes up, sun goes down, and some days never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Dulcimers in harmony and old six-string guitars, voices rising through the trees and on up to the stars. Sun comes up, sun goes down, some days never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Yellow moon and silver clouds and candles on the sill, and fiddlers all warming up their bows to play that St. Anne's reel. St. Anne's reel. Oh, round and round the music goes, back and forth in rhymes. Stories told of better days and olden golden times. Sun comes up, sun goes down, some days never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Find the chords and wend your ways through the old familiar keys. We're singing the songs of yesterday out on the Erie. Sun comes up, sun goes down, some days never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Well, everybody here tonight has a song to share. Melodies that warm the heart go lilting through the air. And the sun comes up and the sun goes down, but Sundays never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Oh, the boats go drifting up and down along the waterway, and you know we could sit and sing all night until the break of day. Sun comes up, sun goes down, some days never end. Summer nights on the old canal, singing just for friends. Singing just for friends on the old canal. Thank you, Mr. Jolene. Well, I've come to the end of my program, but I won't leave you without the song you've all been expecting me to play all night, and I haven't done it yet. Thomas Allen published in 1913 a song called Low Bridge, Everybody Down. And Pete Seeger picked it up later, changed the words a little bit. Thomas Allen rode 15 years on the canal, and 15 years on the Erie Canal, and Pete Seeger changed it to 15 miles on the Erie Canal. At the speed limit, that would be 3 hours. But the canal was, the old Erie Canal was pretty much passé at that time. It's 1913. The railroad ate its lunch. I mean, you got to understand that. The canal couldn't go in the winter. When it froze up, they had to shut down, so you couldn't take passengers or cargo on the canal in the winter. The canal shut down at dusk, so it couldn't run at night, and the railroad could run at night. The canal went 5 miles an hour. Well, even the early trains could do 5 times that. And by the end of the 19th century, they were going 10 times that, or better. And there was just no reason to have a canal. Passenger traffic, there were no longer any passenger boats on the canal. They were just freight boats. And the biggest thing was, they were being pulled by horses and mules. And because the canal was too small, and the banks were too made of mud, to have power boats on it. You couldn't run a power boat down the old Erie Canal, because the wash from the propeller would erode the banks, and pretty soon you'd have a mess. So in the early part of the 20th century, New York State took approximately 16 times as much money as they had for the original, because it was close to $100 million, approximately 16 times as much money as they had spent on the original Erie Canal, to change it into the barge canal. And it was rerouted. The old Erie Canal went right through the center of downtown Rochester, right over the Erie Canal, right over the Genesee River on a viaduct, an aqueduct that is now the bottom half of the Broad Street Bridge. And what now is Route 490 that takes you out to the east of the city was the bed of the Erie Canal. And also to the west, Route 490 became the Erie Canal. And those old locks that were wooden locks, there's still little vestiges of old canal locks along Route 490. So they dug up the old Erie Canal, they abandoned large parts of it, made a large canal, the barge canal, ran it through, and that canal took over. And for whatever use it was for freight, that was still being used up until the 1950s. I can remember going down to the banks of the Erie Canal and watching strings of oil barges being pushed down the barge canal by a towboat. And just a few years ago, when Genesee Brewing was putting a huge vat, a huge metal container, vat or whatever you want to call it, tank, giant tank, in their brewery, they couldn't bring it in by train, and they couldn't bring it in by car, because by a truck it was too big. So they brought it in on a canal boat and trucked it up from the barge canal up to their brewery on St. Paul Street. So the Erie Canal, we call it the Erie Canal again. We don't call it the barge canal. But this song came out when the Erie Canal was being carved up and transplanted into a different canal. And yet this was a song of nostalgia about those days when you and a single mule could hitch her up to the boat and go all the way from Buffalo to Albany. It only took you 60 hours. I've got a mule that name is Sal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. She's a good old worker and a good old gal, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We've hauled some barges navigated on the Erie Canal. So get up, Sally, past the lock, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. We'll make it to Rome by 6 o'clock, 15 miles on the Erie Canal. I eat my meals with Sal each day. I eat beans, she eats hay. She's not so slow if you want to know. She put the buff in Buffalo. Low bridge, everybody down. Low bridge, 'cause we're coming to a town. If you always know your neighbor and you'll always know your pal. If you've ever navigated on the Erie Canal. Thank y'all very much. If you have questions, feel free to ask them, and I'll make up a good plausible answer. Let me recommend to you, if you ever are interested in the music of the Erie Canal, the late Professor Bill Hallfish of SUNY Brockport put out a book in 1980s. You can still find it around, called the Canalers Songbook. It's got all the songs I sang here today, except for some of the more recent ones, and a whole bunch of other ones that I don't sing. And it's really worth picking up just to get the words of the history and the research in it. And thanks Brian McClellan very much for having me here. I'm always glad to come back every year, and I hope I'll see you again next year. Any questions? Okay. I guess I sang it all.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you.
That was good. Finance students, really
You have
good.
it, very fine. Where's your metal detector things?
You know what, that must have been the original door. Oh, I see. Yeah. Because that's a new car down there.
You know, they truck milk in from Michigan, Michigan, Ohio, Vermont, Connecticut. What's the project? Wisconsin. Manufacturing. To try to sell very small. There's a DHA truck over there, or DFA truck. Ted is interning with the manufacturing academy, the project is to do. I wonder if the museum display for manufacturers can't come in.
Oh, cool.
There's been information from all the sources.
Simons is used to go.
So it's one of the manufacturers, Great Lakes cheese.
That came,
Yeah. Well, there's been
They're okay.
then that
a long history of milk processing and cheese making in the county.
Yeah, my great grandfather did.
Yeah. So
Farmers don't.
There's a source.
yeah, so it's kind of like a balance. So when there's the
I forget the number,
tie it all together,
500,000 pounds.
bring back the history.
Teddy. If I can find out some more
They
about
have their own base
my
there.
grandfather,
So when they separate the
the
they can
property we have in town,
dehydrate, powder it, and
he had a cheese factory up the road, up
manufacturers
east,
and
and I always go to that area.
we've got a
And of course, he's got the honor.
Well, we have a lot of artifacts here too.
Right.
It's tiny. It's about that long, and it's dark color.